All right, so this is a little story that I tell from time to time when it's appropriate. Moral of the story comes at the end. Won't tell what it's about and ruin it. But this is about my daughter in her senior year in high school getting ready to go to orientation at UNCC, UNC Charlotte. And we were going to be taking the nice family car. At the time was a Honda Passport, uh, pretty good shape, dependable car, was going to get us there and back, no problem. A couple days before, she had an unfortunate incident and introduced herself to the back of a pickup truck, and that was put in the driveway to be fixed later. In the meantime, we had to take a 1988 Ford Thunderbird that a good friend of mine, Donnie Varnell, had bequeathed to us at the time. Good around town car, not something you really want to drive 320 miles, 360 miles to Charlotte, turn around and drive back again in. But it was the last of the orientations available for UNC Charlotte for that summer, and so there was no real choice in the matter. We had to go. So we hop in the T-Bird and we head to Charlotte. Cruise control the whole way, and it's 70, 75, not a single problem. Got there just under 6 hours. So we're there for 2 days. She makes new friends. It's all going well. It's time to leave, and this one friend she's made during orientation is getting ready to take the bus to the airport to fly back to Boston. She's down there on her own. And it's going to take her like 2 hours to ride these buses around, what equates to like maybe 6 miles. So we're like, hey, throw your stuff in the back. We'll take you to the airport. At least you can kill time hanging out in the airport and not have to ride around the bus. So this becomes important because this changes miles driven when we take the extra 10 miles to go to drop her off and turn around and get on the road. Because we're maybe 45 minutes into the drive, 4 lanes of highway going each way, just everybody's warp speed. We're going five over, and everybody's going by us like we're standing still, just short of Salisbury, North Carolina. And it's just like snap. Just the car just it's like somebody turned the key off. Just nothing. Just put a dead stick. And I dead stick it over to the shoulder of the road and pull over. And now we're broken down here and not somewhere else because we gave that little girl a ride. And this is fortunate because before too long, pretty quickly, a gentleman stops by in his little Honda and says, "Hey, I got a pickup truck at home I can go grab, and I'll tow you to the auto parts store." And while he's gone, air, spark, and gasoline. That's the three things an engine needs to get your car going. If you can figure out which one of these three you're missing, you can narrow your problems down. And while he was gone, I determined there was no gasoline. It was probably the fuel pump was gone. So he comes back, but instead of having like a 20-foot tow rope, he's got a piece of chain that he doubles up that's maybe 3 feet from bumper to bumper at this point. So we're going to go slow, I imagine. No, we get in the back country mountain roads around Salisbury, and I look over, and Taylor Ann's got her hands over her head like, wee, riding a roller coaster, having a big old time, and I'm white knuckle about to die because I'm riding the brakes to keep some tension in the chain. And I'm thoroughly convinced this guy's either trying to kill us or is an idiot. I'm just considering putting some slack in the chain and shaking him loose because I just don't want any part of this. When I see the O'Reillys up ahead on the left, so we stick it out. We coast into the parking lot. I again put some slack in the chain, shake it loose. He just jumps out, throws it, takes off. I think he kind of knew he was being an asshole. Not cool. But there we are at O'Reilly's with a broken down car, and we go in to see if they have a fuel pump. Of course, they don't have a 1988 Ford Thunderbird fuel pump in stock. But then I remember my wife had an RX-7, and it had an inline fuel pump that was under the driver's seat. Little thing, half the size of a can of beans. And if I could take one of those and splice it into the gas line, I can probably get the car running. Yes, and they do have one of those in stock. 1982 RX-7 fuel pump. They've got one. 20, 30 bucks. But go ahead and take the fuel filter out of the Thunderbird. It's at a convenient spot to put this in. And I got to run some wires on the side of the car with duct tape to the battery under the hood. I'd have got pulled over for that if anybody really paid attention. And we get the fuel pump going, got the gas unhooked from the carburetor. It's pumping into the Gatorade bottle I've got. So yeah, fuel's coming out, but the car won't start. And we work on it, work on it, work on it. Finally, I call my mechanic buddy, and he tells me, no, you have fuel injection, not a carburetor. For technical reasons we won't go into, not enough pressure. It's not going to start. It's not going to work. So I go back in, order the proper part to come the next day, ask him where the nearest hotel is. 100 yards away. And there's a Chinese restaurant right next door to eat at. Actually, Thai. So we go over to the hotel and they tell us cash only, no credit card, cash only. So I have to go back over near the O'Reilly to hit the ATM so I can get this guy's cash money he's stealing from his boss. And we pay him and we get into the room. I take one look around and explain to Taylor Ann, you are to sleep in your clothes with a hoodie pulled up on top of the covers. Do not pull the covers down and not sleep under the covers. We want to come as little contact with this room as possible. In fact, based on the looks of the bathroom, if you need to take a dump, you're probably going to be doing it in the parking lot because I don't know that you want to touch anything in there, but it's a place to lay our heads. And next morning we get up after an adventure. Went out with my daughter that night, but that's a whole another half an hour story, so we'll skip that for now. So next morning we get up, head over, I'm gonna drop the tank. Well, it's full of gas. So I walk in and I ask around to say, who's the unlucky guy here? Who's the sad sack? Who's the guy that's always 5 minutes late, always running out of gas, never has two nickels rubbed together? They all four of them point at the fifth guy, him. No questions asked. I said, today's your lucky day. I said, I could buy a bunch of 5-gallon gas cans and pump the gas out of my tank so I can drop it and then put it back in, which is going to cost the same amount of money as refilling the tank. So, and then I got a bunch of gas cans I don't want. So pull your truck up next to mine, and I'm going to use this little RX-7 fuel pump, and we're going to pump gas out of my tank into your tank. You're getting a free tank of gas today. So we do that, and I drop the tank. At this point, I discover that I've parked over a hill of fire ants. So I drop the tank laying in fire ants, get the fuel pump out, parts show up. They go through the parts, no fuel pump. What do you mean no fuel pump? Well, we looked and we looked, sir. It's just it didn't come. Well, how soon can we get it? Tomorrow. No, tomorrow's not acceptable. We need it today. So right about the time panic is really setting in, the gentleman that took the order the day before comes in and goes, "Hey, I know I put in that order right. I know it's got to be there." And they go digging through stuff, and he comes out of the back. Well, in Salisbury, North Carolina, there's apparently a Billy Joe Bob that works on cars, shade tree mechanic. He's pulling your engine out with a hoist hooked to a tree, but he's charges you okay, and he gets his parts from O'Reilly's, and every day he comes up and picks up a box full of parts. So he was about to get a free fuel pump because I seriously doubt he was going to bring it back when he realized he had a spare. But they find it in time. We go out there, we drop it in, tighten it up, put the gas tank back up, put some gas back in it. Oh, look, I've killed the battery through all this. Buy a new battery, put a new battery in it. Car starts right up. It's 4 o'clock, 4 p.m. maybe. We get on the road, heading home. Day two, on the way home. And about 6 o'clock, the sun's starting to go down, and the alternator light comes on. So again, if you know about cars, this means one of two things. It means the alternator has gone bad right after the fuel pump went bad, or it means this brand new battery I just bought is a dud. It's not the alternator, it's the battery not taking a charge, making the alternator think it's bad, light comes on. We'll know pretty quickly because it's dark now with the headlights on, so either we're going to be running off the alternator and the car will keep going with bright lights, or running off the battery, in which case we're going to start wearing it out like you would a pair of batteries in a flashlight, only much quicker. But we get another 100 miles. And for those that are familiar with the trip, we were in Plymouth, North Carolina at this point, headed back to the Outer Banks on 64. And everything's going great. So we're going to pull into Wendy's and get a bite to eat. We're not going to stop the car. We're not that brave. We're not getting out of the car. We're just going to drive through, grab some things, and head up down the road. So as we're pulling away from the drive-through, I notice the headlights look kind of dim, and it starts running a little rough. And I'm going down the road. I push the headlights off for just a split second. It runs good. Turn headlights on. It runs bad. Uh, for those of you that aren't technically inclined with cars, this is an indication that your battery is dying and you're about to get stranded. So now we're outside of Plymouth near Roper looking for an off ramp to get off the highway. And we find one, again, dead stick it down off the ramp, and just at the bottom of the ramp, pull off into the grass. It's now 10 o'clock at night, and we're stuck. So hooray for technology, get out the phone, smartphone, look up Advance Auto, find the nearest one, 7 miles away, see what's in stock. There's the alternator, order it, set the alarm for an hour before they open, call my wife, tell her what's going on. We recline the seats and we go to sleep in the car on the side of the road. Night two. Up bright and early with the sun, pop the old alternator out, Call the advanced auto, ask, do you by chance deliver parts? And after pleading my case and telling my story, she agrees that she'll run the 7 miles to me, and I'll charge it on my credit card. And they bring me the alternator, and she waits while I put it in to give me a jump to make sure it's all good. Doesn't take but about 15 minutes. It's probably maybe 7, 8 o'clock in the morning at this point. She jump starts me, give her the core one back, and we're back on the road. And we're home another hour and 15 minutes later, day 3. So the moral of the story, what's the moral of the story? Well, the moral of the story is thank God all that shit didn't happen on the way to orientation. The car ran fine, we got there, and we had an adventure on the way home. Silver lining. It all depends how you look at things. We could have complained and bitched and cried about the whole scenario, but instead, whoever it was looked over us, got us there, got her through orientation, and then it just took us the better part of 3 days to get home. But thank God for silver linings. So I tell that story from time to time. Now it's on record. I may tell it again and re-record it at some point, but just testing out the mic, I thought that story might be a good place to start.